Picture this. A 2026 pickup truck, fresh off the lot, sitting in a service bay because a software update failed and now the infotainment system has locked out half the climate controls. Meanwhile, 2 states over, a 2003 Chevrolet Silverado with a 5.3-liter Vortec V8 under the hood just crossed 400,000 miles on the same automatic transmission it left the factory with, and the owner's biggest complaint this month was a squeaky door hinge. This is not nostalgia talking. This is a documented trend that has flooded used truck lots, farm auctions, and construction sites for the last 2 decades. The early 2000s were the final stretch before pickup trucks got complicated. Cast iron blocks. Naturally aspirated V8s and V6s with no turbochargers spinning at insane boost pressures. Simple wiring harnesses instead of miles of computer network cable. Basic 4-speed and 5-speed automatic transmissions instead of 10-speed units juggling a dozen gear ratios. These trucks were built during a window in automotive history when reliability engineering and emissions requirements still lived in relative harmony, right before turbocharging, direct injection, and touchscreen-dominated interiors turned every repair bill into a small mortgage payment. So why does a truck built more than 20 years ago in the early 2000s routinely outlive a brand new 2026 model loaded with lane keep assist and a massive center touchscreen? Comes down to raw mechanical simplicity. Cast iron engine blocks expand and contract more predictably under heat than the aluminum blocks increasingly common today, which means fewer warped heads and blown gaskets over hundreds of thousands of miles. Naturally aspirated engines never have to survive the brutal heat and pressure cycling that a turbocharger inflicts on internal components decade after decade. And a truck with 200 sensors simply has 200 more things that can eventually fail compared to a truck with 20. Before we count down 9 of the toughest, most abuse-resistant pickup trucks of the 2000s, machines still hauling hay, plowing snow, and commuting 200 miles a day right now in 2026, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we are about to break down real engine codes, real mileage patterns, and the exact mechanical reasons these trucks refuse to die. Let's start the countdown. Number 9 on our list is the GMC Sierra 1500 from the GMT 800 generation, built from 1999 through 2006. Now some of you are already shouting that this is just a Chevrolet Silverado wearing a different grille, and honestly, you are correct, and that is exactly why it earns a spot on this list. General Motors built the Sierra and the Silverado on the same platform, with the same frame, the same suspension geometry, and in its most common configuration, the same 5.3-liter Vortec V8 engine. What the Sierra brought to the table that kept it from being a total twin was a slightly more upscale trim strategy, but mechanically under the skin, you are looking at the identical, bulletproof General Motors small block architecture. Because General Motors produced enormous numbers of trucks on this GMT 800 platform between Chevrolet and GMC combined, parts availability in 2026 is outstanding. Salvage yards are full of them. Aftermarket companies still manufacture everything from water pumps to complete crate engines for this exact drivetrain, and independent mechanics know this platform inside and out. It lands at number 9 not because it is inferior mechanically, but because it is functionally identical to a truck ranked higher on this list, and we wanted to give it its own spotlight for the sheer scale of how many of these are still working trucks today. Moving on to number 8, we head to Dodge with the Dakota, built from 2000 through 2004. Under the hood of the top trims, Dodge dropped in the 5.9-liter Magnum V8, a torquey, cast-iron pushrod engine descended from the same Magnum family that powered full-size Ram pickups and the sport-oriented Dakota RT. Mechanically, that Magnum V8 is genuinely excellent, tough enough to handle real towing and hauling duty without complaint for hundreds of thousands of miles. So why does the Dakota only crack the list at number 8 instead of higher? The honest answer is everything wrapped around that great engine. The automatic transmissions paired with these Dakotas were noticeably less durable than what Ford, Toyota, and General Motors were putting behind their own V8s during this same era, and owners report a higher rate of early transmission rebuilds. On top of that, Dodge trucks from this generation picked up a reputation for more frequent electrical gremlins, things like faulty grounds, wiring harness corrosion, and sensor failures that Ford, Toyota, and General Motors trucks of the same vintage simply experienced less often. None of that means the Dakota is a bad truck. It means that if you want one of these to legitimately outlive a 2026 model, you need to budget for a transmission rebuild and stay on top of the electrical system, which is exactly the kind of caveat that knocks a truck down a few spots on a countdown like this one. Number 7 brings us to the Toyota Tacoma, specifically the 2000 through 2004 model years powered by the 3.4-liter 5VZ FEV6. This engine has genuinely legendary status among truck enthusiasts, and for good reason. It uses a cast iron block paired with aluminum cylinder heads, and it was engineered during an era when Toyota was famously overbuilding its engines relative to how hard they were actually being pushed. The result is a V6 that regularly crosses 300,000 miles with nothing more than routine oil changes, and plenty of documented examples have pushed well past 400,000 miles while still running the original engine and transmission. Farmers, ranchers, and small contractors have kept these Tacomas in daily service for 2 decades because they simply refuse to break down in any dramatic way. The used market for these trucks in 2026 reflects that reputation directly, with clean examples commanding prices that would shock owners of far newer, far more depreciated trucks from other brands. Parts availability remains excellent because Toyota kept core Tacoma architecture remarkably consistent, meaning aftermarket suppliers still fully support this drivetrain today. If simplicity and a stone-cold reliable reputation is what you are after in a mid-size truck, the early 2000s Tacoma with the 5EZFE under the hood is about as close to a sure thing as this era of trucks gets. At number 6, we cross over to Nissan with the first-generation Frontier, chassis code D22, built from 1999 through 2004. The engine to look for here is the 3.3-liter VG33 EV6, a single overhead cam design with a cast-iron block that gave up a little bit of glamour in exchange for an enormous amount of durability. Unlike some rivals that had already moved to timing chains, this Nissan V6 uses a timing belt, which means scheduled maintenance is non-negotiable, but when that belt is replaced on schedule, the bottom end of this engine simply does not wear out under normal use. Fleet operators, landscaping companies, and small farms quietly loaded up on these Frontiers throughout the early 2000s because they delivered Toyota-level toughness at a lower price point, and word spread fast within the working truck community. In 2026, parts for the D22 Frontier remain relatively easy to source, especially common wear items like water pumps, timing components, and suspension bushings, since Nissan sold huge volumes of this truck across North America. It may not get the same enthusiast hype online as its Toyota competitor, but mechanics who have wrenched on both will tell you the VG33E deserves every bit of the reputation it built the hard way, one high-mileage oil change at a time. Number 5 on our countdown is the Ford Ranger, and specifically we're talking about the versions built from 2001 through 2008 equipped with a 3.0-liter Vulcan V6. Let's get this out of the way immediately. This is not a fast engine. It was never designed to be a fast engine. What the Vulcan V6 was designed to be is nearly impossible to kill through neglect, abuse, or basic ignorance of a maintenance schedule. This is a pushrod, overhead valve design with a relatively low state of tune, minimal electronic sensors compared to more modern engines, and a fundamentally simple architecture that found a permanent home under the hood of millions of compact pickups. Because there is so little complexity for anything to go wrong with, independent mechanics across the country will tell you that a well-maintained Vulcan-powered Ranger is one of the closest things to an appliance in the automotive world. It just keeps running. These trucks became the default choice for small businesses, delivery fleets, and first-time truck buyers precisely because owners could drive one for 200,000 miles doing basically nothing beyond oil changes. In 2026, the compact truck market has shifted dramatically toward larger, more expensive vehicles, which has only made surviving examples of the simple, honest little Ranger more desirable to buyers who just want a truck that starts every single morning. Number 4 takes us back to General Motors with the Chevrolet Avalanche, built from 2002 through 2006. In practical terms, the Avalanche is a Silverado wearing a costume. It shares the same GM T800 platform, the same frame, the same suspension, and in the vast majority of configurations, the same 5.3-liter Vortec V8 found in the standard Silverado. What made the Avalanche different was its clever mid-gate system, which let owners fold down the rear wall of the cab to extend the bed length, giving it genuine crossover appeal between a traditional pickup and a family hauler. But underneath that unique sheet metal and folding cargo system, you are getting mechanical DNA that is essentially identical to every other 5.3-liter Vortec-powered General Motors truck on this list. That means the same proven bottom end, the same widely available parts, and the same reputation for shrugging off high mileage that made the standard Silverado famous. Where the Avalanche loses a few points compared to its more basic sibling is the added complexity of a few unique body panels and that mid-gate mechanism itself, which gave it a few components a plain pickup bed never has to worry about. Mechanically speaking though, if you find a well-kept Avalanche today, you are functionally buying the same bulletproof reliability as the truck ranked higher on this list, just wrapped in a more unusual shape. Number 3 brings us to the truck that basically defined this entire era of General Motors reliability, the Chevrolet Silverado 1500, GM T800 generation, built from 1999 through 2006. The engine most associated with this truck's legendary status is the 5.3-liter Vortec V8, factory code LM7, a member of General Motors' third-generation small block family. This engine easily crosses 300,000 miles with nothing more than basic maintenance, and because General Motors produced this platform across multiple brands and body styles in huge numbers, the parts ecosystem supporting it in 2026 is genuinely enormous, covering everything from basic gaskets to full-performance rebuild kits. If there is one component on this truck that owners need to stay ahead of, it is the 4L60E automatic transmission paired with this drivetrain. Left completely neglected, that transmission can develop expensive problems earlier than the engine ever will, but with regular fluid and filter changes on a proactive schedule rather than waiting for a dashboard warning light, that same transmission can rack up hundreds of thousands of trouble-free miles right alongside the engine. This is the truck that fleet managers, farmers, and contractors bought by the millions specifically because they trusted it to work every single day without drama. And 2 decades later, an enormous number of them are still doing exactly that. Number 2 on our countdown is the Ford F-150, specifically the generation built from 1997 through 2003. The engine to seek out here is the 4.6-liter modular V8, a single overhead cam design that Ford engineered with genuine long-term durability in mind. Unlike some rival engines of this era that relied on rubber timing belts requiring scheduled replacement, this modular V8 uses a timing chain, which under normal maintenance conditions is designed to last the entire service life of the engine without ever needing attention. Combine that with an exceptionally strong iron block and heads, and you get a V8 that mechanics across the country still describe as nearly unkillable when properly maintained. One important note for anyone shopping the used market in 2026, make sure you are looking at this specific generation and not confusing it with the later 5.4-liter 3-valve Triton engine that arrived in the redesigned F-150 starting in 2004, which came with a completely different reliability reputation involving spark plug issues that this earlier generation simply does not share. Beyond the engine itself, this F-150 generation benefits from being, quite simply, one of the easiest trucks on planet Earth to find parts for. Ford sold an enormous number of these trucks, independent shops know this platform inside and out, and cheap, plentiful aftermarket components mean keeping one of these running past 300,000 miles rarely requires an expensive specialist. And that brings us to number 1, the truck we consider the single toughest, most abuse-resistant pickup of the entire 2000s, the first-generation Toyota Tundra, built from 2000 through 2006. Underneath the hood sits the 4.7-liter V8, factory code 2UZFE, and among truck enthusiasts and independent mechanics alike, this engine has earned a reputation that borders on mythical. It uses a cast iron block combined with aluminum cylinder heads, a design philosophy that gives it the thermal stability of an old-school iron engine while keeping weight reasonable at the top end. Toyota famously over-engineered this V8 relative to the power output it was actually asked to produce, and the result is an engine that owners routinely report crossing 500,000 miles with nothing more than scheduled maintenance, including a timing belt replacement roughly every 90,000 miles, which is genuinely the single most important service interval on this entire engine. Skip that belt service and you risk catastrophic internal damage, but stay on top of it, and this V8 will comfortably outlive several ownership changes. Now, no truck on this list is completely without weaknesses, and the first-generation Tundra's biggest one is frame rust, particularly on trucks that spent their lives in northern states where road salt is a way of life every winter. This issue became serious enough that Toyota eventually launched a nationwide frame inspection and replacement program specifically because so many of these otherwise mechanically flawless trucks were rotting from the underside faster than the drivetrain itself was wearing out. If you are shopping for one in 2026, a frame inspection is not optional, it is mandatory, especially on a truck that spent any time in the salt belt. But solve that one specific problem, and you are left with what is widely regarded as one of the most durable engines ever bolted into a mainstream pickup truck, a genuine holy grail for anyone chasing the 500,000-mile club, and the undisputed champion of our countdown today. So there you have it, 9 trucks from the early 2000s that were engineered in a completely different era of the automotive industry, back when cast iron blocks, naturally aspirated engines, and mechanically simple transmissions were the default instead of the exception. Every single one of these trucks has a documented, real-world track record of crossing hundreds of thousands of miles in genuine working conditions, something plenty of brand-new 2026 trucks loaded down with complexity may struggle to match by the time they reach the same age. Now we want to hear from you. Which one of these 9 trucks would you personally trust to reach 500,000 miles, and did we leave your favorite Indestructible 2000s workhorse off the list entirely? Drop your pick in the comments below, hit that subscribe button if you want more deep dives like this one, and we will see you in the next episode.